Hello and welcome to Idea TV News Update. I am Chinatu Oji. We begin with the headlines. Lawmakers demand urgent census to secure Nigeria's future. Suspended Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan storms National Assembly. Oyo Sema warns of imminent flooding, urges residents to prepare. States push for electricity tariff cuts amid power sector crisis. UK businesses eye Africa's next growth frontier amid US trade shift. Away from Africa, US withdraws from UNESCO over alleged bias and divisive agenda. In business, Dangote refinery exports 1 million tons of petrol in just 50 days. In sports, Nigeria's Super Falcons set for semi-final showdown with South Africa's Banyana. Now the news in full. Amid growing concerns about youth development and accurate national planning, Nigerian lawmakers and population experts have called for the immediate conduct of a credible population and housing census. Speaking during the 2025 World Population Day event in Abuja, Senate Committee Chairman on National Population and Identity, Senator Victor May, warned that Nigeria's reliance on outdated data from the last census in 2006 undermines national development and policy effectiveness. Ume noted the uncertainty surrounding Nigeria's true population figures estimated between 230 and 300 million, making it difficult to plan for the needs of citizens, especially the youths who make up more than half of the population. Ume stressed the urgency of obtaining accurate and disaggregated demographic data to drive effective youth empowerment policies, equitable resource allocation, and inclusive national development. He pledged that the National Assembly would provide the necessary legislative and financial support to the National Population Commission (NPC) to ensure next census is timely, accurate, and inclusive. Echoing the sentiment, House Committee Chairman Okunjimi Odimayo emphasized that accurate data is not a luxury but a fundamental requirement for both government and private sector planning. He urged President Bola Tinubu to act decisively and initiate the delayed census process. NPC Chairman Nasir Kwara reinforced the call, describing Nigeria's youth, over 130 million people under 30, as a strategic asset whose potential must be harnessed through data-driven investment in education, health, and job creation. He advocated for a return to conducting a national census every 10 years, as recommended by global standards. The event also featured the United Nations Population Fund, whose deputy representative, Koesan Kwau, urged leaders to center youth voices in decision-making and ensure their rights and choices are protected. Despite a failed attempt to hold the digital census in May 2023 under the previous administration, stakeholders now insist that accurate demographic data is critical to Nigeria's progress, and long overdue census efforts must no longer be postponed. Moving on, suspended Kogi Central Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan arrived at the National Assembly today, sparking heightened security and a standoff over her attempted return to legislative duties. Supporters gathered outside the complex in solidarity, while security operatives, including multiple police patrol units, enforced strict access controls and vehicle checks at the entrance gate. Akpoti-Uduaghan, who was suspended by the Senate in March 2025, claims that a recent court decision affirms her right to return to her seat. Over the weekend, she publicly disclosed that she had returned to the Senate leadership, notifying them of her intention to resume plenary participation, defending her move and arguing that the suspension had deprived her of legislative functions like bill sponsorship and motion presentation, despite her continued constituency work. Her legal counsel's senior advocate of Nigeria West, Idahosa, insisted that no valid orders bars her attendance. Emphasizing attendance in Parliament constitutes a legislative act the courts are entitled to review. While Akpoti-Uduaghan's aide offered no immediate confirmation of a full resumption plan, the senators present at the Assembly has already triggered political ripples. Despite the court's developments, the Senate maintains that her suspension stands. Its spokesman, Senator Yemi Adaramodu, reiterated on Sunday that there is no binding court directive yet to recall her. Meanwhile, rights activist Aisha Yesufu has thrown her weight behind Akpoti, vowing to accompany her into the chambers and accusing the Senate of unconstitutional overreach and contempt for judicial judicial rulings. The situation continues to unfold as legal, political, and civil rights tensions converge at the gates of the Nigerian legislature. Moving on. The Oyo State Emergency Management Agency (SEMA) has issued an urgent flood alert warning residents, particularly those in flood-prone areas, to brace for heavy rainfall and potential flooding. In a statement released today in Ibadan by the agency's Administrative Secretary, Ojuolape Busari, the alert followed alarming data from the state's flood early warning system. According to the report, the eastern and northeastern zones of Ibadan, including parts of Lagelu and Egbeda local government areas, are forecasted to be at the brunt of the downpour. Busari listed specific areas at high risk, including Yanofa, Monia, eastern parts, and communities along the Ibadan-Ife road, such as Egbeda and its surrounding settlements. In addition, moderate to heavy rainfall is expected across much of the Ibadan metropolis, notably in densely populated zones like the University of Ibadan, IITA, Ibadan Airport, Akobo Basurun, Ojo Gate, Challenge Ring Road, and sections of Oluyole. These regions, she noted, are highly vulnerable due to their geography and population density. Assuring residents of government readiness, Busari stated that SEMA, alongside other government bodies, voluntary agencies, and civil society groups, is fully mobilized to respond promptly and mitigate the impact on affected communities. However, she emphasized that preparedness must begin at the community and individual levels. Moving on. A growing number of Nigerian states have announced plans to reduce electricity tariffs following the Enugu Electricity Regulatory Commission's EERC decision to lower rates for Band A customers from 209 naira to 160 naira per kilowatt for an hour, effective from August 1st, 2025. This move has stirred major backlash from power generation, GenCos, and distribution companies, DISCOs, who argue that it could jeopardize the financial health of the electricity sector. The GenCos claim that the industry is already burdened with debt exceeding 5 trillion naira and accuse state regulators like EERC of relying on flood subsidy assumptions. Despite the pushback, the Enugu state government defended its decision, stating that it adhered to due process and that the revised tariff is both fair and reflective of federal subsidies. EERC Chairman Chijioke Okonkwo emphasized that the tariff adjustment followed a comprehensive review of Main Power Electricity Distribution Limited's operations in Enugu State. The Commission maintained that the reduction benefits consumers while aligning with its regulatory responsibility. Inspired by Enugu stands, other states with electricity market control such as Ondo, Plateau, and Lagos have signaled intentions to implement similar tariff reductions. However, Ekiti announced it will continue with the existing national multi-year tariff order for now. In contrast, GenCos and DISCOs have warned that states slashing tariffs must be ready to fund the shortfall themselves, cautioning against passing the burden to the federal government. Joy Ogaji, CEO of the Association of Power Generation Companies, criticized the EERC decision for setting a dangerous precedent. She argued that the 45 kilowatts covered under the new tariff order represent only a fraction of the actual 112 kilowatt generation cost, leaving a 60% funding gap. With the 2025 federal budget allocating just 900 billion naira, far below the annual 3 trillion naira needed to sustain the sector, operators fear that the current approach could worsen liquidity issues and dissuade private investment, thereby threatening the broader electricity reform goals under the Electricity Act of 2023. Moving on. A recent report has revealed a sharp rise in British business interest in Nigeria and other African countries, positioning the continent as a strategic growth destination. Driven by abundant mineral resources, a youthful population, and accelerating reforms, Africa is no longer perceived merely as a source of raw materials, but as a dynamic economic hub. According to new research by UK-based strategy management partners, 50% of surveyed UK companies with annual revenues above £20 million are already operating in African markets and plan to expand. Another 28% have shown interest but remain cautious due to entry complexities. This growing investor confidence is being fueled by Africa's demographic momentum and its rich resource base, home to 30% of global mineral reserves, 65% of the world's arable land, and a projected workforce that will account for 1/4 of the global total by 2035. 7 key sectors have emerged as top draws for British investors: technology, oil and gas, renewable energy, agriculture, manufacturing, infrastructure, and strategic minerals. UK companies are particularly attracted to Africa's booming digital economy and growing consumer demand as urbanization and middle-class expansion drive need for goods, services, and housing. The visit of London Mayor Sadiq Khan to Nigeria last week further underscored this renewed UK-Africa engagement as 27 London-based firms explored opportunities in fintech, sustainability, and enterprise technology. Khan emphasized shared cultural and economic ties between London and Lagos, expressing optimism about forging deeper partnerships across finance, health, tech, and education sectors. This momentum coincides with a notable decline in US-Nigeria trade, as protectionist tariffs introduced by President Donald Trump led to a $527 million drop in U.S. imports from Nigeria in the first 5 months of 2025. While the UK's interest grows, challenges remain. The report warns that political instability, regulatory uncertainty, and weak infrastructure continue to hamper investment flows. Currency volatility and cross-border trade inefficiencies are also significant hurdles. Experts like Babatunji Adegoke, treasurer of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Victoria Island branch, advocate for public-private partnership (PPPs) as a solution to unlock investment and address Nigeria's infrastructure gaps. He emphasized that PPPs are essential, not optional, in sectors such as lithium development and renewable energy. With the African Continental Free Trade Area (AfCFTA) gaining momentum, aligning public policy with investor needs will be critical. If key structural issues are addressed, Africa's youth-driven markets, rich resources, and industrial push could transform the continent into one of the world's leading investment destinations over the next decade. Away from Africa, the United States announced on Tuesday its decision to once again withdraw from the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization (UNESCO), citing that what it described as persistent bias against Israel and the promotion of divisive globalist agendas. According to State Department spokeswoman Tammy Bruce, the U.S. no longer sees continued involvement in UNESCO as being in its national interest. She criticized the agency for focusing excessively on UN sustainability goals and for advancing what she termed a globalist ideological agenda. This marks the second time in recent years that the U.S. has pulled out of UNESCO. The first occurred in 2017 under President Donald Trump, who accused the agency of harboring anti-Israel sentiment. Although President Joe Biden reinstated U.S. membership during his term, today's announcement confirms a renewed reversal. Bruce specifically pointed to UNESCO's 2011 decision to admit Palestine as a member state, calling it highly problematic and in direct opposition to U.S. policy. She argued that this move fueled anti-Israel rhetoric within the organization and further justified the American withdrawal. UNESCO, best known for its work in preserving World Heritage Sites and promoting global educational and cultural cooperation, has long been viewed by Washington with a mix of support and skepticism. The agency oversees globally recognized sites such as the Pyramids of Egypt, the Athens Acropolis, the Great Barrier Reef, and Tanzania's Serengeti. Historically, U.S. engagement with UNESCO has fluctuated. President Ronald Reagan withdrew U.S. membership in the 1980s over claims of corruption and Soviet bias, while President George Bush rejoined in the early 2000s. The later exit underscores the ongoing debate within U.S. leadership over the country's role in international institutions. We're now going a quick break. The news continues on the other side. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is still Idea TV News Update. Now the rest of the stories. In business, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, president of the Dangote Group, has announced that the Dangote oil refinery has exported over 1 million tons of premium motor spirit (PMS) within a span of 50 days. Speaking at the Global Commodity Insights Conference in West African Refined Fuel Market, hosted by the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority (NMDPRA) in collaboration with S&P Global Insights, Dangote highlighted the milestone as a sign of Nigeria's emergence as a net exporter of refined petroleum products. He stated during his address that from the beginning of June till date, they have exported about 1 million tons of PMS. This announcement comes amid skepticism regarding the refinery's capacity to satisfy local fuel demands. While Dangote's refinery is actively exporting petrol and aviation fuel to destinations like Europe and Saudi Arabia, domestic marketers continue to import the same products into Nigeria. This discrepancy has fueled debate over the refinery's prioritization and operational strategy, especially in light of Nigeria's historical dependence on imported refined fuels. In a related development, Dangote Cement plc has signed a deal with Sinoma International Engineering Company Limited. He also revealed plans for the cement arm of his group to ramp up exports targeting $500 million worth of cement and clinker exports by 2027. These initiatives reflect the conglomerate's broad ambition to drive industrialization in Nigeria and position the country as a key player in both energy and construction materials on the global stage. And now in sports, the stage is set for a blockbuster clash as Nigeria's Super Falcons take on South Africa's Banyana Banyana in the semi-final of the 2025 Women's Africa's Cup of Nations WAFCON in Morocco. The match scheduled for today, July 22nd at 5 p.m. Nigerian time, promises to be a fierce battle between two African powerhouses. Nigeria, with a record 11 WAFCON titles, are chasing a return to continental dominance, while South Africa, the reigning champions, are determined to defend their crown. Nigeria's path to the semi-finals has been marked by dominance and defensive solidity. The Super Falcons topped Group B after a commanding 3-0 victory over Tunisia, a tight 1-0 win over Botswana, and a goalless draw with Algeria. In the quarterfinals, they dismantled Zambia 5-0 with goalkeeper Chiamaka Nnadozie yet to concede a goal in the tournament, an impressive feat that underscores the team's defensive discipline. South Africa, meanwhile, on the other hand, showed resilience and attacking flair on their journey to the last four. Banyana Banyana began their campaign with a 2-0 win against Ghana, drew 1-1 with Tanzania, and hammered Mali 4-0 in their final group match. Their quarter-final clash with Senegal ended goalless after extra time, but they held their nerve in the penalty shootout, winning 4-1 to secure their semi-final spot. With both teams in strong form, the semi-final promises to be a tightly contested encounter. The match will be broadcast live on SuperSport across sub-Saharan Africa and SABC Sport in South Africa. And that's all we have for you on Idea TV News Updates. But before we go, here's a recap of the headlines. Lawmakers demand urgent census to secure Nigeria's future. Suspended Senator Natasha Akpotudwagan storms National Assembly. Oyo Sema warns of imminent flooding, urges residents to prepare. States push for electricity tariff cuts amid power sector crisis. UK businesses eye Africa's next growth frontier amid US trade shift. Away from Africa, US withdraws from UNESCO via alleged bias and divisive agenda. In business, Dangote refinery exports 1 million tons of petrol in just 50 days. And in sport, Nigeria Super Falcons set for semi-final showdown with South Africa's Banyana Banyana. Do not forget to follow us across all social media platforms at Idea TV. I am Chinatu Oji. Thank you for watching.